Hello everyone, welcome to the video supplement of this article. If you have not had a chance to read the article yet, please take a moment to do that. I will be building off that content. In the article, we talked about the types of data you will encounter when putting together your dashboard. I will be referring to these two buckets as lookup data and source data. In this video, we will go over a few things. Uploading data based off our example, developing a calendar table, and connecting relationships between the data. Our hope by the end of this series is to give you an idea of a workable report to present your story. For our purposes, we will be going over some of the basics to get you started. If you remember from the article, Lisa is requesting an increase in produce shipment, and her intent at the very least is to get an increase in apples and bananas. To do this, she will be showing data from the past 3 months. She has already completed the evaluation and found the reports needed. For quick access, she has saved this in a OneDrive folder titled Produce Dashboard Data. First things first, you'll need to open your Power BI desktop. I know this looks quite daunting when you first boot it up. However, our goal is to just get data into the system and then wire up the relationships. By clicking Get Data, you will see all these different sources you can get data from. The expertise needed for each of these sources can range from beginner, like an Excel document, to more advanced sources, like SQL database or blank query. For the purpose of this presentation, I created the data for the example and placed it in an Excel document. The key thing to remember for any sort of independent document you are using is to store it on the cloud. Power BI then has access to it when it refreshes the data and will not require your computer to be available for this process. Preferably, it is stored on your OneDrive, as we know Power BI and OneDrive work well together. They are under the same suite of applications, and Microsoft has developed the programs to work seamlessly together. Once you have selected the Excel sheet you want to use, it will show you a preview of the data. If you have extensive data that's hundreds of columns and rows, you may not see all the data on the screen. This is only a preview window. Now, I know your first inclination would be to upload the raw data and start playing. However, here is the best practice I recommend. Always click Transform Data. This will bring you to the query editor. I'll show you why once we get there. In the query editor, we are able to transform the data so that it will be defined for its purpose. For example, you have a column of order numbers. Power BI will make assumptions to try and help define the data. As a result, it may come into the program as a whole number. Power BI is assuming it should be able to calculate the number. The reality is, this order number is the name of the transaction. To change these formats, you can do one of two things. Either click on the upper left corner of the column and change it accordingly. Or you can click the column, then click Transform in the upper ribbon here. Then select the data type. For our example, we notice that we have all decimal numbers when it should be a currency. As you can see, I changed the data type to be a currency for each of our pricing. There are other more advanced techniques you can do within this window that will transform the data to the purpose of your story. Of course, we could spend a whole video on that specifically. For now, we are just uploading the data, assuming all the data needed is here. Once you have finished transforming the data, click Close and Apply. This will bring the data set into Power BI. This is our source data for this dashboard. As a good practice, I like to define the data we are looking at. So what I will do is rename the data source. So what are we missing? That's right, lookup data. Once again, this data has been created and saved in our OneDrive folder. So we will follow the same instructions. Get data, Excel document, navigate to the file, and double click. Click Transform Data and check that all data types are set. We now have a list of all the products, their costs, how much has changed, their abbreviations, and their vendor names. That's perfect. Here's a little taste of what Power BI could do outside of getting data. You can also create data within Power BI that will be used within your dashboard. If you know Excel, this won't be as difficult. Let's say that I would like to know what percentage of profit was on our sale. Well, I could go back to the Excel document and write up a formula that will achieve that, then come back into Power BI and click refresh and it will appear. You could also use a language called Data Analysis Expression, or DAX for short. It's similar to Excel with a few key differences. With Excel, you are thinking of a formula influencing each cell individually. DAX applies to full columns and full tables. This way, as new data is added to your already existing Excel document, when refreshed in Power BI, it is automatically defining the data types. It's also being applied to the rules and DAX expressions you have in place. So let me show you how that's done. In the dataset, you'll see this new column button. Click that, and it will bring up this white area. Before the equal sign is the label, and after is the expression. So what we want is the profit column to divide by the total sale column. I'm going to name this percentage of profit. Then after the equal sign, I'm going to take the profit column and divide by the total sale column. Notice, to reference the columns, use brackets within the expression. And here you go, the percentage of profit in decimal form. Of course, for us, that can be a bit difficult to evaluate and read through. You can change the format using either the percentage button here or the drop-down next to the format. Now we have a new column that is telling us the percentage of profit, and we are able to use this metric in our visualizations. We won't need to add the column in the Excel report. Power BI will automatically make this connection and do it for us. So why are you bringing this up? This seems very complicated. Well, there are a ton of different reasons why the DAX language will be very helpful, and tons of videos available online that could teach you the language. The reason I bring this up, though, is to get your feet wet with a calendar table. To construct one, you will need to create it from scratch. Keep in mind, this table is important as it will help with defining the relationship between your data using dates. Right now, we do have date of sale. We could just pull this in the workspace and it will automatically give you a hierarchy of year, quarter, month, day. If this is all you need, fantastic. But what if the format of the month is only 3 letters long? Or if you wanted to modify the data based on fiscal year versus calendar year. If Power BI does not understand the relationship of these different metrics to the metric you're using, in our case, date of sale, it will not be able to filter the way that you want. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you create a visualization using a date, it creates a hidden table that works in the background. So if I want a bar graph that tells me the number sold based off the date, this one visualization can work, but imagine having 3 more. Each of these has the same table embedded within it separately. This is done with every single visualization with the date metric attached. For a small 3-table report, it doesn't have much of an impact, but those with a lot of tables, it will bog down the report, which will bog down the audience's experience. This is where DAX can be a solution. For this, click on where your data is on the left-hand side. In the upper ribbon, click on New Table. This white area will pop up again. Recognize it from the column. It will say Table Equals. This is where you will name your table and put a formula in that will apply to the whole table and start you off with a column. If there's one expression or formula you should take away from this video, it's Calendar Auto. This will auto-generate dates based off the parameter you put in. It will ask for the month number you will end your fiscal year. So, if your fiscal year ends in June, you would put a 6. And if it's July, you would put a 7. For our example, their year ends in February, so we'll put a 2. Now watch what happens when I click enter. You have the first column, which is the date. Now you are able to add columns based off that date. So, let's say you wanted to have a version of this date that was just a year. This is where Excel can come into play. You can apply similar formulas that will be based off this first column. All you need to do is click Add Column, name the column before the equal sign, and then afterwards put in your formula. Make sure to name your columns uniquely. That way you don't get confused as to which metric you want to use. We wanted just the year. For this, we would use the year function and make sure to include the column you are manipulating. This is defined by the brackets. In this case, it's date. If you search online, you can find the function needed for each column and input the formula. Remember, this is your date table that applies to your company, so only you know what version of the date you need. To make sure that we don't waste too much time in DAX, I have already created a date table to use in this example. Awesome! Let's move on to relationships. We have uploaded the data, but how does it interact? That's where this third icon comes into play. This will help your report make assumptions on how you would like to filter your data. It will also allow Power BI to understand how the data influences the other tables. Remember the example about abbreviations in company? We have something similar here with our data. The list of transactions only has the items listed with abbreviations. We won't be able to understand which vendor sold us that item because that information isn't listed in this list. We do, however, have a list of our products with their abbreviations. Power BI hasn't drawn that connection. This is our job to make this connection for it. When you're in the relationship section, if you click the data point from one table and drag it into another data point, it will auto-connect those two data points. This will prompt it to be one of three conditions, either one-to-many, one-to-one, or many-to-many. One-to-many is the most common. It's basically saying that in one of these tables, there are many values, some of the same name. In the other table, there is only one unique value. Power BI would take that unique value and then use that to find each of those values in the other tables. It's like if you were to see the Roman numeral 32 and someone says to you, I want you to find all the 10s. Well, based off a list you have, 10 in Roman numeral form is represented by the letter X. So you're able to look at the Roman numeral for 32 and pick out the 3 X's. That's a rudimentary example, but it shows how we're helping Power BI use this relationship to understand how does the data influence the tables. A one-to-one relationship is the same concept, but it's saying that each table has the same unique value in the columns with the relationship. It will never change. What is true in one table is true in the other. This is commonly used for information like order numbers, product IDs, invoice numbers. A many-to-many relationship is the least used because it's the weakest of the relationships. An example would be authors and books. Authors can have many books, and books can have many authors. You are able to draw some connection, but it may confuse Power BI. If the relationship generated is a many-to-many relationship, perhaps to make it simpler, it makes sense to make a lookup table that can bridge the two separate tables. A simple 2-column table with a list of books and the name of the author would suffice. The other relationship we need to make is between the date of purchase and the date table. This will help us to have different options to modify our data by date. As you can see, it created a one-to-many relationship between the data. We have one date in our date table and many dates in our source data. We can go over more on what these relationships influence when we assemble our visualizations. Now, we're all wired up with the relationships and our data is uploaded. We are ready to create our visualizations that help tell our story. We will tackle this in phase 2.